Hello, everyone, and happy fall. We're well at the end of fall now, but I love late fall. Even once the leaves are off the trees, I still love seeing them all over the ground. And just like the golden brown of the oaks, I love all stages of fall. And what started off today as a beautiful morning ended up rainy, which was not in the forecast, but we need the rain, so that's a good thing. So today we're going to be talking about othering. And it's funny, I mentioned at worship this morning that this was going to be the subject of the next Seaside session. And Sarah was like, "Hey, you stole my sermon." So it's kind of what she talked about this morning, very much, although a very different take on it. So if you were not there or not watching online, I think you could still see the Facebook Live videos. Yeah, you can. So if you see the Facebook Live videos on our Facebook page. So I suggest you take a look at her sermon as well. So othering, it's kind of a weird word. It refers to the process of viewing or treating people as fundamentally different, alien, or inferior to oneself, or one's own group. It's that division of us versus them. And this can shape how societies define identity, belonging, and power. And the concept is very much a central part of prejudice and inequality in many forms, so racial, cultural, gendered, or political. In institutions, othering can be embedded in laws and policies and social structures that favor some groups over other groups. And on a personal level, again, it can manifest in prejudice or exclusion or aggression, um, and just even small acts that signal this person belongs and that person doesn't. And small acts that we might do every day that's like, oh, this is one of, again, it's that us versus them. This little act that says, oh yeah, you're one of us, you're one of my group versus you're something different. So othering operates on many levels and can take many different forms. Prejudice against a certain group of people just being one of those forms that it can take. It's so easy to look at people around us that we don't understand and separate them into a category as something from different as than us, than we are. And so we put this into the category of them, like, here's everything that's familiar to me, but you're different, so you're over there. And these people that we call them usually have very different beliefs and opinions than we do. And I'm just as much a victim of this as anybody. There's people around me and in my own community that I think, how can they possibly think such and such? Like, how can they support such a person? Or how could they not think that certain acts are cruel and inhuman? And I literally like can't understand. Like, I try to put myself in other people's shoes and it doesn't mesh in my brain. Like, it doesn't make sense to me. I try to understand. I try really hard. And it's literally beyond my comprehension, that the beliefs and acts that some people have and the acts they carry out. Even as someone that's I'm very close to, that will sometimes say something that makes me cringe. And it also makes me really sad that they would see the world in such a way that would make them say something that to me is a horrible thing to say. I mean, from this other person's perspective, they don't see it as horrible. It's just kind of how they see life. But to me, I'm like, oh, did you really just say that? So the effects of othering are very far-reaching. It can damage self-worth, it of course fosters division, and it also sustains this systems of oppression. Yet awareness of how othering works also offers a path towards resisting it and trying to move away from it. Social movements for equality and justice challenge othering by affirming that we have a shared humanity among all of us and that we all have a right to be recognized as equals. So ultimately, resisting others means questioning the boundaries that we all draw between ourselves and around our little groups. And it requires a lot of us. It requires empathy and dialogue, like real dialogue, and a commitment to inclusion. When societies move beyond the us versus them, it can open a door to understanding, cooperation, and connection. So the important thing to remember is that we all come from a certain place and a certain perspective. We're all forming our opinions based on how we grew up, the experiences we've had, the things we're told, the things we've been told all our lives, and the little micro environments and our social circles that represent the kind of the environments in which we, human environments in which we move, of which we're a part. Like this, we all, and if someone has had very different experiences than I have and has kind of a whole different microcosm in which they're living, which we all do, right? We all live such different lives, then it follows that they're going to see things differently and have a different perspective on things than I am. So I wanted to share an experience I had, and I actually had already planned this lesson when I had this experience. And maybe that was back there in my head, and maybe why I kind of had this interaction. So I'm not a much on social media much these days. And when I am, I usually try to avoid all those comments from strangers. Someone says something and people just spew out stuff because it's like you're driving, you're in a car, and so if someone goes too fast or passes you, you can say things that doesn't matter because you weren't actually taught. I mean, it does, but it feels like it doesn't matter, right? And it's the same thing with social media. People can just spew out something because they aren't, there's not a person sitting there with eyes and a face sitting there in front of them that they are talking to. So it makes it easy to say sometimes pretty nasty things. So I tend to avoid Facebook and social media comments. Um, but recently a friend of mine had put out a story about the No Kings protest, which was last week from when I'm recording this, and specifically the one in Southwest Harbor. And there's a man who commented negatively about the protests, but it was not, it was about basically what he said is, why are people out there creating divisiveness when instead of helping their neighbors? So, I agreed that like there's too much divisiveness in our society right now, and that's a really negative thing. And I also agree that we should be helping our neighbors. So like I kind of, and this guy, he didn't say it in a way that was like, he was said it in a kind of very reasonable manner. So I decided to respond to him, which I don't usually do, but I said, you know what, I agree with you that there is too much um, divisiveness in our society right now, and very bad thing. But why can't we do also at the same time, instead of, why can't we also stand up for, why can't we, and I also agree that we should help our neighbors in need. And I said, well, why can't we help our neighbors in need and at the same time stand up for human decency? So he was saying, like, these people out protesting, they should be helping their neighbors instead. I'm like, we can help our neighbors and stand up for human decency. And, but his feeling was that it was, and he respected when he responded to my comment, and he said, "I really appreciate your thoughts," and he was very respectful. And he said, that he just he felt that he felt the protest was so full of anger and hate that it actually increases divisiveness, and which is what we don't want more of right now. And, it was an interesting point. I don't see it that way. I probably would have been out there myself if I had been of better health, but I did kind of agree that like some of the signs and he actually referred to some of the signs that people were carrying. And I kind of agreed there were one that was FU Trump, except it spelled it out. And, it's like honestly, that kind of put me off. It's name calling, right? I mean, how is name calling helpful? But good for those people that were out there trying to have a voice because they were concerned. They were concerned about the divisiveness too. And you know what? Yep, there was some anger because people are upset with kind of a good reason to be upset. So anyway, so it was, but it made me think. I kind of was able to, because we had this respectful conversation. I mean, it was a very brief exchange on social media, but we were both respectful of each other. And he certainly was, he definitely was in me. I could tell by how he expressed his comments, and I was trying to be of him. And I was kind of trying to like I could kind of see where he was coming from. You know, he had a point. At the end, I didn't agree with him, but about as far as the protests, but I understood what he was saying, and um, so the point of this relating all this is that as though they were clearly coming from different perspectives, we were able to have this kind of respectful exchange. And I was doing my best not to other him, and it was clear he was not othering me, but actually kind of talking to me as a human, which can be very social unusual on social media. So I want to share some thoughts with you from Sharon Salzberg. She is a writer and teacher of the Buddhist meditation in the West, and she has co-founded the Insight Meditation Society in Massachusetts. And her meditation practices focus on insight and loving kindness. And so this is something that Sharon Salzberg wrote, and I found very meaningful. It is one thing, after all, to create and then demonize an other out of nothing. No connection, no relationship, no knowledge of someone's hopes and fears, their dreams and their sorrows. It is quite another thing if the world is attempting to create an other out of and then demonize Uncle Joe, Cousin Jill, your neighbor, your son, your daughter. We can be strongly conditioned in the abstract to think of others in terms of stereotypes. The use of stereotypes may be an evolutionary survival strategy for us to make sense of an immeasurably chaotic world, but it is also a cultural habit that creates psychological distance from each other and every one of us. Thinking in rigid categories, like us versus them, of projection locks us into a dynamic of seeing the world. Oh, she says that. Thinking in rigid categories of projection locks us into a dynamic of seeing the world in terms of us versus them. This sense of divisiveness, isolation, and separateness from others that we tend to take as fact is actually bred by our minds. With habitual ways of thinking, we create the fiction of being completely separate from anyone else seen as different. That disconnect may provide a superficial sense of control, but we ultimately make ourselves more and more isolated. As a result, we find ourselves increasingly objectifying particular individuals or entire groups of people, either through antipathy, through prejudice, or even just through indifference. And that's a big one to remember too, just the plain old indifference. We start living in a world of mental projections, a world without substance, without dimensionality. When there is no substance, when there are only shadows and ghosts born from our minds, there is no sense of real connection. With no dimensionality, there is no chance for real understanding. Our society also perpetuates a dualistic worldview of who is like us and who isn't. Not only does seeing the world in these terms keep us at arm's length from other people, it also places our own sense of who we are in a box. When we feel a tighter grip on our habitual assumptions that tend to inform the way we act and define ourselves, instead, we can learn to gain insight into our fundamental connections and liberate ourselves from the impulse to only understand the world in terms of boundaries and labels. It turns out that proximity leads to understanding. So she's saying a couple of things here, in addition to what I talked about. She's also just talking about the isolation that this kind of thinking can bring on, because there's this whole world out there of connections, and we're blocking those off. We're disconnecting from that, and it really could cause a lot of isolation into your own little group. and to your own self. And I also really like what she says about not only is it unfair to those other people just because you have different perspective on things of kind of pushing them away, but I like how she also talks about how it limits your own self, how it puts you in a box, and you're only by kind of thinking, oh, well, those people are that, we're us. So us, I can only think like these other people. And it can limit how you yourself think. And I think that's a really good point that she makes. So I just want to end with a exercise that was actually a friend of hers, Mirabi Bush. And this is an exercise that she encourages people to do as a part of meditation or to remember how people who might seem you might not be able to like you can't understand them or might seem like the other are really just like us. And actually, this is titled Just Like Me. So you can do this practice by bringing someone to mind, or it could be done silently when meeting someone new. Um, and the idea is there's a number of phrases, and you can use any of these phrases or any others that may seem appropriate that you think of. So, so we'll do it now. So again, this is something you could do like when you meet someone, just a couple of them. But right now, I want you to think of someone, a fellow human being, just like you. It can be anyone. It could be someone you're close to. It can be someone you're not. It could be someone that you don't really understand. And then while thinking of this person, silently repeat any of the following phrases. And there's a whole bunch of them. I will read all of them, and you can think of all of these since we're doing this now, as you think of this person. This person has a body and a mind, just like me. This person has feelings, emotions, and thoughts, just like me. This person has, in his or her life, experienced physical and emotional pain and suffering, just like me. This person has at some point been sad, disappointed, angry, or hurt, just like me. This person has felt unworthy or inadequate, just like me. This person worries and is sometimes frightened, just like me. This person has longed for friendship, just like me. This person is learning about life, just like me. This person wants to be caring and kind to others, just like me. This person wants to be content with what life has given, just like me. This person wishes to be free from pain and suffering, just like me. This person wishes to be safe and healthy, just like me. This person wishes to be happy, just like me. This person wishes to be loved, just like me. Now then allow for some well wishes to arise. I wish this person to have strength, resources, and social support to navigate the difficulties of life with ease. I wish that this person be free from pain and suffering. I wish that this person be peaceful and happy. I wish that this person be loved because this person is a fellow human being, just like me. So try this sometime when you meet someone and just think of a couple of phrases if you can remember. Um, and or do it another time and think about just thinking about person in your head that someone that you don't necessarily agree with. And it's easy to get to come by Pollyannish, like, why can't we all just get along? Because we are not always going to agree with other people. And that's kind of the point, right? It's that understanding that this other person is another human with all these things that we just talked about, just mentioned, just like me, in spite of our differences. So yes, we're going to disagree, but this is still someone who is another human, just like I am, and deserves to be treated that way with respect. So that is all for today. I hope you have a good Thanksgiving, which is coming up surprisingly soon now, and I will see you all next time.